Hey guys, what's going on? This is Cheney 180 and
I'm playing with myself.
you're listening to another episode of They're Not Dolls.
Episode 237.
And we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. We have the one and only Brian Flynn from Super 7. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. Episode 237. That's a test to stamina right there.
That doesn't even count the quickie minis, which started also during the pandemic. And that's at, what is it? 200 and something as well.
201.
So, yeah.
201.
So over 400.
Yeah, technically over about 400 episodes. So.
Woo!
Wow. Congratulations.
A lot of toy talk.
Yeah.
Well, I can't even, there's like 8 analogies in my head and they're all fighting for prominence and none of them are coming out first, but it's a hell of a lot of work regardless. So congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It makes it easy when there's so much news coming out, like just rapid fire all the time. It makes it fairly
Plus,
easy.
I don't do any of the work. Cheney does all the work. I just talk about toys. So it's great.
Fair assessment. But as you said, when news coming out like that, I mean, definitely if you're a toy collector, this has to be the golden age of toy collecting. There has never been this many toys by this many company with this breadth of lines, with this quality ever in the history of toys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely the golden age. I know that, we'll kick that idea back and forth sometimes about, like, is it too much or whatnot? It's like, you got to understand, man, it's never been like this. And the fact that people have choices between, sometimes 4 or 5 different companies doing the same property, like, that's where, we the collectors win. You get to choose what you want, or you could just go all in and collect it all. Like,
do we win though? Because I want it all. I just don't have, I don't have the money or the space for it all is the problem.
True.
See, that's what's called aspirational living, right?
Yes.
Right. I also call it credit cards.
Yeah, that's not the best idea, actually.
No,
I know.
I will go back to one day I will have giant rooms full of cases, but in the meantime, I will have this.
So how do you display your collection, Brian?
Depends on what point in my life you're talking about. Currently, it's only about half out, and it's here at the office because before I had kids, I had a whole big room to myself. And the house that we had this giant office foyer study thing. It was massive. It was originally built that way for the couple. And when they had kids, they had left plans on how to convert it into bedrooms. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have kids at that time. So I had this giant space for it. Then we had kids. And so we built it into the rooms and that took up half of it. Then I had another kid and they shared a room for a while. Then we had the third kid, and so then
they had to go
move to the office, and so we built the cases at the office. So it's not here; it's over where the lunchroom is sort of surrounded by cases full of toys. But even then, I can only get half of it in.
Wow!
On any given day, and that doesn't count anything I've made.
You already sound way smarter than me, Brian, because I have stuff displayed at the office as well, but I do the dumb thing where I buy doubles of stuff so I can have it at home and the office.
There's stuff that I have more than doubles of for sure.
I think I saw you just posted Godzilla that you,
yes. The Bullmark Flesh Godzilla, which is, if you're collecting vintage Japanese vinyls, specifically Toho, that is one of the holy grails. It took me 20 years to find one. And then in short order afterwards, I got a couple. At one point, I had 4 of them. I still have 3 of them because I'm not getting rid of one. It's like, it took me 20 years to find one. I'll take another. I don't care. I'll have as many of these as I can get.
I mean, Cheney is super guilty of that. Like, he'll show me his orders for, like, you know, from Ami Ami, and he's got like 3 of the Medicom Mofex Wolverines, and it's like, 3? Okay.
It makes me just as happy every single time.
Yes. And then there's always, you know, with the more modern stuff, if something happens to one of them, I've got a backup right there. I don't have to like go online and try to find something like, oh no, what, like, oh, the price has gone up, I'm gonna have to pay that. And you know, I like to just make sure everything's good right there and then. But we're not here to talk about me tonight. We're here to talk about you, and we're here to talk about, you know, some G.I. Joe, some Godzilla, you know, some of these awesome
Silverhawks.
Oh wow, with the falsetto.
Yeah. I mean, Vanilla Ice was last week. This week,
SilverHawks is this week.
Cartoon theme songs. Yeah. I'll do the Thundercats, but it's a musical thing. So that's
I wanted to say what's up to everyone in the chat. Adam got the night off, so he doesn't have to read names tonight. So
yes.
Yeah. But thank you everyone for showing up. And let's get into G.I. Joe, man. What are I guess what are you most excited for from it? Like what was the most exciting part for you with G.I. Joe?
I think the most exciting part was simply being allowed to play with it, being able to do something with it. G.I. Joe is definitely one of those franchises that we've talked about for a long time, but then so has everybody else. I know a lot of people in the industry over the years that have made plays for G.I. Joe and not had any success. You know, and if you're talking about Hasbro, that is the baby. That's what really blew them open in the 60s. It helped them again in the 80s. That is, you know, something that's very near and dear to them. So to be allowed to go into the world of G.I. Joe and make our spin on what that would be was super exciting. And, you know, as we were briefly mentioning before we started here, you know, that was 18 months ago, and just trying to keep a lid on it for this long has been rather crazy, because you're just like, oh my God, you don't know what I'm working on. Like, I could totally want to share this with you, but I can't.
Yeah, you have no idea, and I want to tell you, but I can't, and you're gonna like it. I'll just tell you right now.
Well, there's a catch-22 is I don't know if you're gonna like it, but I like it.
Right.
You know, there's definitely
some
limitations and things that we're doing that is not going to be the thing that a lot of people want, but that's okay, because there's a lot of G.I. Joe you can get in a lot of different ways. And,
true.
This is our version of it, and that's not to be that it's the only version of it.
Correct. There's other avenues, but if you want a fairly cartoon, you know, we're talking like scene for scene stuff here, accurate depiction, then, you know, Super 7's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the places that we came in on it. Obviously, G.I. Joe, if you're talking about just 3 3/4, it's been around for 40 years. It's, you know, they've made a lot of G.I. Joes. So what do I want to do as a collector that gives me something I don't have? Gives me something that I would like to have that's different from what already exists, because you don't need me making another, I don't know, another O-ring shipwreck. Like, you can go get that. And I'm not saying that negatively against shipwreck or O-ring, but like, what is our take on G.I. Joe? And so whether it was Reaction or Ultimates, you know, we really were going down this route of doing something that was cartoon centric, but not limited to the cartoon. So we'll talk about the comic books. We'll talk about a whole bunch of, you know, deeper cut places to go for characters and content. And then, you know, in our relationship with Hasbro, making sure that what we're doing is supporting their greater goals for G.I. Joe. Obviously, their goal is a much more modern take. You know, their goal is to sell G.I. Joe to children, not just adults. And so where are they going with the franchise? And then what can we do that's different from what they're doing?
I wanted to ask you a little bit about super obvious right off the bat. You're leading with the classic cartoon G.I. Joe.
Yes.
Are you guys able to, I mean, whether or not you can answer this, are you guys able to delve into, like, you know, you got Sunbow, DIC, you got the G.I. Joe movie. We're not,
as far as I know, we're not limited on any of that. That's just sort of the place I wanted to go.
Right.
Because that was the thing I wanted first.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Hopefully, you know, we gave them a long plan of the things that we wanted to do. But if I only get in here once, what am I going to get? So this is where I'm starting.
Nice.
What are some of, and I know this is going to sound like I'm prying for character stuff, Brian, but I'm legit asking, what are some of your favorite of the original figures? Like what are the ones that stick out to you from, like, your own, like, younger days of collecting G.I. Joe figures?
So for me, I was born in 71. So I really started collecting figures in 78 when Star Wars came out. You know, I didn't have them. I didn't have an early bird kit. I had to wait till they hit the shelves. So that would be me at 7 years old. Those are the first toys I had. So if you start talking about G.I. Joe in 82, 83, 84, you know, I'm starting to get 12, 13. So I'm still getting some toys, but I'm growing out of it a little bit. I'm a little bit stunted there, so I'm not completely growing out of it. So when those first Joes came out, like everybody else, there was no context for it really, but Snake Eyes was the immediate one where it was like, oh, who is this all black guy? Like, he's so cool and tough looking. I really liked him, and I really liked it was less about the characters and more about some of the accessories. Like, I love the fact that the little clear vinyl, you know, visor on the helmet would come up and was detachable. That was like a little fussy thing that I was like, oh, this is really elegant. That said, and this doesn't necessarily lead directly to where we ended up with reaction, but the thing that drove me crazy about G.I. Joes is that they got loose immediately and couldn't stand up. And while that
thumb breakage,
you know, I lost the guns too quickly to break the thumbs. So, you know, to me, that stuff reminded me of Micronauts, which I had a lot of, and I broke my Micronauts all the time. And I lost the hands because they would pop off, and I lost the feet because they would pop off. And so that whole O-ring mechanism, which for many people is the crux of why they love G.I. Joe, is that posability and that articulation. That was the one part of G.I. Joe that I was like, oh man, this drives me crazy because I can't stand it up. He keeps falling over. He's gotten loose. So when you ask me, like, what were my favorites growing up, that first batch that came out, it was sort of Snake Eyes. Cobra Commander was really cool. And then there was this whole thing where it's like, oh, there's two of them. Like, which one do you have? And I'm like, I don't know which one I have. I only have one. I've only ever had one. Like, you know, some guy 2 streets away's got one with a hood. No, he doesn't. That doesn't exist, you know, that kind of stuff. And then, you know, as it got a little later, the figures that I sort of liked were more the off the beaten path ones. Like, I really liked the scuba diver guy. I'm blanking on his name right now. But
wetsuit or torpedo?
The all gray with the fins.
Gray, I think gray with a little bit of black. That would have been torpedo.
Yeah, torpedo. Yeah. I apologize. Somebody already is like calling me out on my credit. I've got a Japanese carded one in the other room. I love that guy, but I can't remember his name right now. I'm bad with names.
There's a lot of years of G.I. Joes.
But, you know, I liked that. I liked Flamethrower. I liked those almost like, here's an action figure of a dude doing something, where his outfit was primarily his function. It wasn't sort of like, here's a costume that I'm wearing to do this. It's not like, here's a whole bunch of pockets because I'm an adventure guy. It's like, no, that was the other one. I loved the mine detector with the
tripwire.
Yes.
Tripwire. Once again, my cred's going out the window for any G.I. Joe fan, because I'm just like, in my head, I'm not going to like, what was the card art? I'm like, whoa, that accessory, it was just so cool. And he was so monotone. It was just like, it's green on green on green with a green.
He was great too, because he had the little landmine
collar
go into his backpack and stuff. Like that
stuff. Those were the guys that I really liked. Were more. It was less about, the army guys per se as the functional guy. Here's guys with job. Like, I can look at you and I know what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Like Shipwreck, I don't really know what he's supposed to do. He's got the Marines logo, but he's got the camo vest on. I'm not sure what is. I don't think he's going parachuting. I don't think he's, he might be driving a Baja Jeep over some sand dunes, but I'm not quite sure. So because while I was aware of the cartoon, I didn't get to watch it that often. Mm-hmm. And so my relationship with the toys, and this is why I think this whole generation, I'm going to get off tangents already, but my relationship to the toys was to them themselves, and them telling me who they were and what their stories were, or me making it up. I wasn't going, oh, this is a replication. Sort of like Star Wars. Like for me, for Star Wars, I saw it one time when I was a kid. That was it. So everything else that my touch points for Star Wars were pieces of plastic. That's why they're so important to me, because I spent years replicating in my mind those adventures through the plastic, not being able to consume the movie. Tron, the same way. I saw Tron one time. And those clear Tomy figures are far more iconic of the movie to me than the actual suits with the glowing circuits on them. So my affection has always been for the plastic first, story and everything else later.
Right.
Like,
it's so much easier to consume like the media now than it was growing up. Like, it's like,
yes.
I grew up with, my dad was one of those guys that had the VCR hooked up to the TV and would record stuff on the TV. And he became a master of making sure he even edited out the commercials. Like, that's how I had the Star Wars movies, was VHS recorded off the TV. Don't tell the FBI though.
Yeah. But yeah, and that was the thing. So we did not have that until much, much later. And that's when I finally got to see Star Wars again. I probably didn't get to see Star Wars again until I was 15. Plus, at that time, if you're talking about when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, I was living on an Air Force base in Bitburg, Germany. So, there wasn't a lot of access to anything. You had one TV channel, and that's the Armed Forces Network. So the Armed Forces Network had 4 cartoons on Saturday morning, and that was it. So I got to watch Scooby-Doo, I got to watch Battle of the Planets, and then the other 2 were always a mix mash between Charlie Chan and the Chan Clan, or just whatever was available. When we moved back from Germany to the States, we went and stayed with my grandma in Houston. And it was so funny because I got there, and the first thing she was like, a Tuesday or something, she goes, oh, well, you want to watch cartoons? And I was like, what are you talking about, lady? It's Tuesday. There's no cartoons on Tuesday. And then she turns it on, and there's cartoons on Tuesday.
And you're
at 3 o'clock. And not only that, they're in color.
Oh my God.
We only had a black and white TV. So literally me and my brother watched TV for like 5 days straight. And we're just like, there's this parrot that has these circular breakfast cereals. Like not only are there cartoons on Tuesday afternoon, but the commercials are cartoons and they're in colors. And there's a bear that has Honeycrisp, and there's an elf that's it was just like mind-blowing to me to see all this stuff. Like,
I've never thought about it like that before. Like from like, an outside perspective like that, to go, there's cartoons that are amazing, and in the between, you've got cartoons in your cereal.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. And then growing up, one of the other shows that they would have like after school, what they had for after school was Roy Rogers and then Different Strokes. I was way into Different Strokes. And Roy Rogers, we thought Roy Rogers was awesome because we hadn't seen anything else. And they're playing Roy Rogers from the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just Roy and Dale singing and roping and doing whatever. And I remember once, like, I don't know what we were watching because it was at my grandma's house and it was like Sesame Street or something. And Roy Rogers comes on and he's old. I'm like, that's not Roy Rogers. That guy's old. My mom's like, no, that's Roy Rogers. You've just been watching old TV shows. Like I couldn't even comprehend it. But
funny story about Roy Rogers. They used to, their museum thing used to be here in Victorville, California. They used to have a whole thing dedicated to them out here.
He owned like half the town at one point or something crazy.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
You know.
I wanted to read this very generous super chat here from Thirsty for Chicken. He says, hello, Brian. You don't know me and I don't really know you, but I wanted to personally thank you for this line. You have made my childhood dreams reality and given me the holy grail of Jove lines.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. Thank you very much for the kind words. And that's the goal is I think these are the toys I want. I think there are other people out there that want the same thing. Not everybody, but there are some people. And for that person that had the same touch points as I do going into these toys, hopefully they resonate the same way with them.
That's speaking of resonate though. I just have to interject for 1 second because you said something that now is stuck in my head where I'm like, I'm already hoping for Battle of the Planets Ultimates figures from Super 7 at some point. So now we can go on. There is another super chat.
Yes, I'll let you read that one, Adam.
I'll read this one. This is from Renee Aldrete, who is actually one of our sculptors at Gentle Giant Studios. And he says, what's Reen got to do to sculpt some Joes?
What's Reen got to do to sculpt some Joes?
You don't have to answer that, Brian. We can move right along. I just wanted to make sure we read his
shout
super
out
chat.
Reen.
Yeah, Reen.
First off, Reen, let's not get fired. That would be the first. That would be the first part. I believe that you probably have a deadline somewhere that somebody thinks you're behind on, simply because all of us do. But hey, you never know what dreams are made of, Reen. That's all I gotta say.
It's true. It's true.
What six shooter says Super 7 Toucan Sam confirmed.
Are there any Joe characters that are just too out there for you that you think are just like I know that might be a little bit of a loaded question as well, but when I think of stuff, it's like and I love G.I. Joe and I love all eras of G.I. Joe. And I'm one of those guys that never stopped buying toys, I hid them from girls, but I just kept buying G.I. Joes, even when they got weird, the anti-drug ones and the eco warriors.
The eco warriors are not bad. And the same thing, all my cred, right? What was the one where they had the zombies?
Yeah,
that was only like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
There's good stuff awesome. All over the place, but at the same time, like with those zombie figures, it's like they're rad, but they just made them and they did a great job.
Right.
Nobody needs me to go make that.
But even like in like the mid to later 80s, there were characters like Raptor, which was the Cobra guy that was bare chested with a bird helmet and fabric wings.
I'm smelling SilverHawks here. Are you smelling SilverHawks?
Well, there we go. Yeah, SilverHawks fills that quotient.
Yes,
I'd rather not focus on what I don't like and then focus on what I do like.
That's a very very good.
Hey, I maintain that motto around here as well. So
it sounds a little cornball, but there's so many places to go that it's not even worth me going into I'm not so into that dude. Just no, I'll take all of these,
I like Clockwork Orgy. Just mentioned the Street Fighter G.I. Joes, which I know Cheney is a big Street Fighter fan, so
Yeah.
I know that's got to be some weird licensing
Hey,
nightmare.
we
problem.
made Street Fighter in Reaction a long time ago.
I know.
You can just put Zangief right next to, the Cobra Soldier and, work it
There
on
you
that.
go. There you go. Yeah. And you guys also made some cool t-shirts. That's one of the things that I did want to bring up too was I really like you guys' like shirts and sweaters and stuff. Like I know for me and my wife, when Comic-Con was a thing, the first place we go is always a Super 7 pop-up on preview night. That's the first stop we hit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And, it's a very interesting sort of thing. T-shirts have been an interesting thing because we always talk about that we need to make more. Because the version of I have with this, if we push a lot of this to the side, in my design career before Super 7 actually became a job, which was most of my life, one of the things that I did was apparel design. I worked at Nike in the apparel design department. After I left, I used to go to New York and design streetwear collections in New York all the time. Then I started doing my own line out here. And then as Super 7 started to pick up, we just folded it into Super 7. But there was always this interesting dynamic where at the store, physically, half our sales come from t-shirts, not toys. Because everybody that walks in the door knows t-shirts and understands t-shirts and how it applies to them. We're only a certain amount of people that come through the door like, oh, toys, got it. Like, this is what I'm here for. And we always talked about this really interesting dichotomy at San Diego Comic-Con, which is preview night and Thursday usually is 90% toy sales. But once we get past Thursday, Friday through Sunday is 90% t-shirt sales. And it is people, just like I see with toys, there are people that I see at San Diego every single year that come to the booth and have no idea or care that we make toys. And they're there and they buy 5, 6, 7 t-shirts at a time. They're like, this is my favorite booth every year. I get all my t-shirts for the year. I buy them all here. I'll see you next year. And they literally knew us as Super 7, the t-shirt company, rather than Super 7, the toy company. Obviously, as toys have really ramped up, we have a hard time focusing on getting enough of that stuff done as well. But in my mind, we're just making cool stuff. A lot of it happens to be toys, but it could be a t-shirt. It could be a pair of shoes. It could be, a pennant or any number, drinking glasses or whatever. Like, just what would be cool and fun to make. And that's the most interesting part of it. Yes, toys are a significant part of it, but for me, it's not limited to that. It's just like, what would be cool and fun to make? And let's go make that stuff.
Heck yeah.
I've got to put my order in for that G.I. Joe thermal. It's just been too hot here in LA for me to think about ordering it yet. But
And in San Francisco, it's winter right now. So,
yeah.
It's so strange how it's so different when it's not exactly that far away. Like,
you cross a bridge and it's 15 to 20 degrees warmer. But San Francisco, in the summer, people come here thinking they're coming to California. It's like, no, you're not coming to California. You're coming to Super 7. It is colder in the summer than it is in the spring and fall. And it's almost as cold as the winter.
You were just on Kev's show last week, toying around, the Butter Baron himself.
yes.
And he's friends with the show. We're actually doing a crossover show with him next week. And he likes to ship things to Cheney in Victorville and include stuff for me in there, as if Victorville and LA are right next to one another.
Oh, it's just down the street, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all California.
Exactly. You're close by.
Yeah. Close enough.
So, well, thank you for the compliment on the t-shirt and coming to the pop-ups. The pop-ups are a lot of fun. That, for me, it's like, let's really get into a license. Let's really go deep down some weird hole that we like with this license. Like with Snoopy, when we did the Peanuts one, I was like, the thing about Peanuts and the early part of Peanuts especially is it's really unvarnished. It's kind of brutal and sad at times. So let's lean into the fact that sometimes it's not all happy. it's sad, but it's an okay sad. It's a good sad, but let's lean into the more unpleasant moments of Peanuts, not the unpleasant in a bad way, but just like, it's not all saccharine.
Mhm.
Like being a kid sucks sometimes.
Yes.
And Peanuts was brutally honest about that. So that was our whole pop-up was called Good Grief because that's
Yes.
what it was. It was all about the failures that exist within Peanuts,
And you
which
guys,
nobody had done before. And they were like, you're really sure you're going to make a whole thing on this? I was like the Angry Lucy t-shirt. I don't know if you remember that one.
I have that one.
Like,
I have it. Yeah. I
yeah.
own it.
And it's like, yeah, but that's real. That's authentic.
Yes.
It's not everybody dancing, at the Christmas play.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we, it's funny because my wife loves the Peanuts and Snoopy. So that last one that was there, she was all about it. Like we were all stoked because, you guys painted the building even with the Charlie Brown shirt design around the whole building.
That was really funny because we had done something else prior, and we just went ahead and painted the building yellow like days in advance. And we're like, no one's going to notice that the building is yellow,
Right?
Because it's a solid color. So all we had to do was come in that night and just paint the stripe real quick, and that was it. The moment you painted the stripe, everybody's like, "It's crazy! They painted the whole building." It was like you didn't notice that actually we painted the whole building a week ago. We just had to put the black stripe on it.
We got a very generous super chat from the Toy Box of Doom. He says, "Thanks for reissuing the Turtles, Brian. It's great when companies make their toys accessible. Flip side, just spent 2.5 hours refreshing on the premium Bandai site for the Dragon Ball figures."
Well, that's one of the things that, I try to talk about. It's like, it's not in my best interest or in my plan to make it hard for you to buy what I make. Like that's sort of counterintuitive. I want to keep making stuff. So I'd like to sell it to you. So the idea that it needs to sell out instantly or it can never, or it's immediately going for 4 times retail on the secondary market, that's kind of counterproductive in my mind to what we're trying to do. I'm trying to make toys to share with all the other people that like having these toys. So I'm going to make it available. And in the case like Turtles, we're launching into wave 5 of Turtles. The secondary market is moving, and there's a lot of people that just weren't aware of us 16, 18, 24 months ago and didn't have a chance to get the Turtles or didn't know what we made, weren't familiar enough with us, and were nervous about pre-ordering something on whether or not they would like it. And so same thing. It's like, well, no one's going to buy and collect our Turtles line if they can't get the 4 basic Turtles. So let's give everybody a chance to get in. There's nothing sacred about the fact that it came out once and it's sold out.
Right.
Like, let's make it available again. And if enough people want it, we'll make some more. Like, that's the goal, I think. But it seems like people expect that it's going to be this horrible, nasty experience, but that's not what I'm trying to do. The flip side of that is by making things available again and giving everybody a chance to buy it, it also means you have to wait for it to deliver. Like, I have to go make it. And that's the hardest part for people to really get over is like, now you got to wait 8 months, 9 months, a year sometimes to get your thing. Or in the case of Thundercats 2, you might have to wait 18 months, unfortunately, because Jurassic Park.
So where are we at on that currently, on that second wave of Thundercats?
Second wave keeps getting, so we've got multiple factories that we work with, which
right.
makes sense to anybody that could think about it. And the factory that we went to make Thundercats at, for consistency's sake, we went back to the original factory that made the original Thundercats, wave 1, from Mattel way back when. So that if you had the first wave, second wave it's an easier road to get to match because it's the exact same place rather than working with a new factory and making sure they make it the same exact way. Not that it's harder to do that. It's just path of least resistance.
It's easier to go, hey, the same materials are here in this place. You guys are familiar with doing this already.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and put it to you, and then they'll feel the same. I gotcha.
Yeah. So, it's a diversification thing. I don't want to put everything at one factory, because then if something goes wrong, everything, house of cards, right? So Thundercats is at a much, much, much larger factory, because those first ones were made by Mattel. And we are a much smaller company. And long story short, they're primarily focused on making Jurassic Park figures. That's what they do. And, we just kind of keep getting bumped. There's no other way. So we actually pulled Wave 3 out of that factory, restarted it in the primary factory that we use, that we deliver turtles from. And Wave 3 is actually shipping this week. Half of it's shipping this week, and half of it's shipping 10 days later. So it's actually been faster for me to move it, start from scratch all over again at a different factory and get it out. So Wave 3 is going to come out, and Wave 4 will most likely ship almost the exact same time as Wave 2 currently is scheduled for, which is even crazier. But it's at this point, you're so far down the road on it that
you're kind of at their.
If I pull it, it's going to start the whole process over again.
You're kind of at that factory's whim.
Sort of at the mercy. And I don't want to be playing something like I'm really being awful or blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's really the outlier. It's an unusual use case that happens. Unfortunately, it's also on one of the more glamorous and exciting figures, which is the giant Mumra, the Ever Living. But the other thing is, I can't deliver it not right.
Right.
It has to be right. And
you guys, I bought Wave 1 of the Thundercats. I previously only bought Wily Kit and Wily Cat from Mattel. So I was very happy that you guys did the Wave 1 reissues and improved upon them in certain ways. And then with the mistake, shipping out the little, the correction pack.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I couldn't have been happier. I didn't mind having to change underpants.
And that's one of those things where every sample I got was correct. And when it showed up, we didn't even notice it, because everyone we'd seen had been correct to that point. And then it got out there, and people are like, hey, that's the wrong color. And we're like, oh my God, it's the wrong color. So we need to do a make do on it. This is not what we promised people.
But that in itself,
the feedback that we got was, for most people, are like, I'm cool with it. I don't really care. But there were definitely people that did, and there were definitely people that broke their figures trying to change out the underpants, and then we sent them new figures. The
fact that you guys even went that far, when a lot of companies out there would just kind of it's fix it yourself or whatever. It speaks a lot. To me, it speaks a lot that, hey, we're going to make it right. That's awesome to me. It's a catch-22 depending on your perspective. There's the flip side where the person goes, you didn't even notice and you screwed it up, and then you sent it later and expected me to fix it. Yeah.
So it can be a glass half empty, glass half full, but we're not trying to make it wrong. It's not in my best interest.
Right.
So
I think it's hard to argue against the transparency too. That's the one thing that it's how anyone cannot respect you guys for that, for you coming out here talking about all of this stuff. And there's a lot of, vocal people on the internet, there always has been, but you don't steer away from coming out here and explaining yourself, which you don't have to do,
right?
But you do. And I applaud you for it. I think it's great to hear it. Even I'm an articulation junkie personally, so I do disagree with your opinion on double jointed knees.
Yep.
But that's not, I'm buying a ton of Super 7 stuff. I have a ton of Super 7 stuff pre-ordered. So it's not keeping me from buying it. And you express your opinion and I understand it. Like, I get it. I think that in certain ways I do agree. Like the Disney Ultimates line, I'm buying a ton of those. I don't think like, it's like, I would never argue to put double joints and stuff like that. So I agree with you here and there. But I just love that you come out and discuss it.
Well, and quite honestly, I always look at it a lot of times with the people that are yelling. I would say that 75% of the time, those people are yelling because they really care. And they've had this idea of what something would look like in their mind for years and years and years. And here you are, you finally come out and made it. And it's 85% of the way there, which is almost worse than if it just didn't exist at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they get really fired up. And they get really fired up because they care.
Yeah.
So I don't fault people for getting fired up because they care. Now, if they just keep going on and they can't let it go, then maybe they are just a jerk, you know? But for the most part, I found that when I talk to people and say, this is how we got here, and I'm sorry if it's not the one you wanted, but you know, I've only got the opportunity to make one, so I'm making the one I want. Most of the time, people come to a very similar thing, which is, I don't love the answer, but I understand the answer.
Right.
And
it makes sense.
I said, I think a lot of it is, you know, people can be it's easy to be very reactionary on the internet. It's easy to be very curt on the internet. And it's easy to just kind of, you know, talk smack. But at the same time,
forget that there are human beings on the receiving end of this.
Yeah, I try not to take it personally. And for the most part, I go, okay, is there a kernel of truth? So when somebody goes, hey, yo, I just got your figures and the pant colors are wrong, I don't go, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I go, are the pant colors wrong?
Yeah. Well, did we not do that right? Like, oh,
yeah, exactly. So I need to check into it. And so then you take that commentary and then you have to run it through your filter to determine whether you think that commentary is valid or invalid. And even if it is valid, if you agree with it. Mm-hmm. And you know, right there's 4 options for the answer. So there's no clear delineation of the answer. And then we've got to make sure what we want. But I generally look at a lot of that stuff. And when people get really frustrated or angry, I'm like, okay, is there something I'm missing? Is there something I've done? Or have I made a conscious choice that just goes against what they would prefer?
Right.
There's a big difference between it being wrong and being not the version you want.
Very true. And the other thing that you did bring up earlier was, you know, the fact that they care. Because if they didn't care, oh yeah, whatever, you know, there would be no comments, there would be no nothing, you know, if they didn't care. So yeah. I wanted to, oh no, I lost my train of thought.
We've kind of moved away from G.I. Joe, and I did have one question that's not directly related to Super 7 stuff, but
okay.
it's more of a timely question, and it's the Snake Eyes movie is coming out.
Yep.
Are you interested in go seeing it? What are your thoughts on it?
I'll see it for sure. You know, I try not to go to any of these things, especially if it's got legacy characters involved, with my baggage of what I think it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Like, because it's not. I'm not, you know, 12 and seeing it, or I'm not 18 and seeing it. Like, you know, when you saw Pulp Fiction when you were whatever, for me, it came out when I was like 19 or 20, right? And it was just, wow, this is mind blowing, right? Just the most insane thing. Like, I've watched a whole lot of other movies, and I think that now all of a sudden I wouldn't react the same way. So I try not to go into any of these things with a lot of preconceived notions and just let them be what they are. Like, you know, I had no idea if Captain and Winter Soldier was going to be good or not. Let's just go see. Like, those aren't 2 characters that pulled from the movie where I was like, ooh, I'm really invested in those 2 guys. But it was like, it was really good, and it had really great moments within it. I really liked Carly Morgenthal's character. I really thought it was interesting. Then Loki comes on, and I'm like, I just want to move in. I want to move into the NBA. But I wasn't looking at Loki, in my mind ahead of time. I'm like, oh, it's going to be this really funny, slapsticky kind of trickster Loki thing. And then it turns the whole thing on its head. And I'm like, this is like one of the best things Marvel's done. That's not what I would have gone out expecting. So I try not to put the baggage on it, especially when it's a legacy franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I just try to let it be. Like, Snake Eyes isn't trying to make me, the 40-year-old, excited about G.I. Joe. I think Snake Eyes is trying to make a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old go through a world building, I assume, I don't know, I haven't seen it, a world building that is, got ninjas and excitement and car chases, but is still safe. It's almost like a Batman and Robin thing, where it's like, this is cool and fun, and I can get invested, but not terrified. I could
have a very refreshing
out tomorrow, and it could be a slasher movie. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I think I'm going to go see it as a matinee this weekend. Not a night. I'm going to try to knock a few dollars off admission. But that's...
it's the same thing. Like, I use the example several times. Like, when I saw The Force Awakens, not The Force Awakens, what am I saying? The first Lucas reboot, Jar Jar movie.
Okay. The Phantom Menace.
I've tried to wipe those away from my brain mostly, but I couldn't get everybody was lining up and camping out in advance. And I'm like, I'm not camping out. I finally got tickets, and it was a Sunday matinee. And so I went to this 2:00 matinee of the Phantom Menace, and it was filled with kids. And we're watching the movie. The moment Jar Jar walked onto the screen, the entire movie theater howled with laughter. And so for me, while I find it annoying, I know that it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It wasn't for me. It was for that 5 and 6 and 8-year-old next to me who was like, he talks funny. I can replicate it in his tongue, and he steals a thing, but get caught, and he's clumsy, and he's falling down. Like, he's comic relief. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's very clear that this movie was not directed to me. This movie was directed to kids, to get them excited about Star Wars. You can live your life through Anakin. Look at all of this. So as much as I try to wipe them from my brain because I don't enjoy watching them, that doesn't mean that they're bad movies or they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
True. I think that, since I had my daughter, that it really has changed my outlook on things like that a lot, to something very similar to yours, to where it's like, I go in and there's all this, expectation and extra baggage and whatnot. And then if I look at it through the eyes of my child, then I can see that, okay, that, because that's, when a child sees something, they see it as the very just like bare bones version of like face value of what it is.
Yeah.
And you can kind of get a better idea, of what that is, when you're sitting there, like you're saying, you're sitting there with all those kids in the theater and they're all about it, Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing for my kids. Like, my kids don't care about the DC movies, and they don't care about the Star Wars movies, but they know every fact possible because they've watched the Lego versions of DC and Star Wars so many times that they know everything. They can tell you every storyline and plot of everything. They know the whole world, but they like the Lego version because it's funny.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We had a super chat from the Wrestling Hound. He said, will we get a rerun of the NJPW Series 1 with updated skin tone colors? Also would love a Jay White in the third wave. LOL.
LOL. Updated. The skin tones are, I don't know if he owns them or not. My assumption by asking if they are going to be remade means that he doesn't have them. The skin tones actually are pretty different. They don't photograph that great, because you put a nice strong light on them and all their skin tones sort of blanch out to be very similar. But they do have different skin tones and they are very accurate. They turned out really, really well. The first images that hit the net were not the greatest, but they right now we're not going into them. But then we're trying to coordinate NJPW Wave 3. NJPW Wave 2 is on the water. I can't make Wave 3 available until Wave 2 gets into people's hands. So, so I don't have probably the best answer for you there. Sort of an in-between kind of sort of answer, and that you might be very happy with the character selection in Wave 3. Maybe.
Okay. I Cheney, if you have other stuff to talk about, but I'd really like to start to get into SilverHawks, and I'm excited about the partnership that's happening with the Nacelle company and new cartoon, new media, obviously the toy line. So I don't know like what you can talk about as far as new Silverhawks or upcoming Silverhawks, but it's a cool line and I'm excited for it. So.
I ordered Wave 1 right out the gate. Like I had to have those, man.
And I if I walked over to that table, I could pick them up. And no, the SilverHawks is obviously very interesting. It's a legacy franchise that has been hiding out in the weeds, out in the woods, where nobody could find it for a long time. We managed to grab it, and we're making the toys for it. Technically speaking, all of that, it is not. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, it's owned by Super 7." It's not owned by Super 7. There's a separate company that owns SilverHawks LLC. Owns SilverHawks. Obviously, I have an interest in that, but so yes, we have partnered with Nacelle. That is Brian Volk-Weiss, who obviously most people know. Most people know him from the Toys That Made Us and things like that. The reality is, if you really look at the Nacelle group, they've been around for a very, very long time. And pretty much any stand-up special you've ever seen, they've done. And they're doing a ton of other stuff. They just did the Behind the Attractions that's coming out like any day on Disney Plus. And so obviously, him being a toy guy, he was like, I would really love to work on this. And I have connections now over the years, surprisingly to some people, maybe not to others. Super 7's had 4 different either cartoons or movie things signed, whatever, even to the point where it's like, yes, this network's bought it. Nothing ever goes anywhere. Nothing ever gets made. It just, that's par for the course in Hollywood. So in as much with SilverHawks, when Brian expressed interest, I was like, yeah, go for it. If you've got the access to actually push this over the finish line or get it further than we've been, then I'd love for you to do it, because obviously he's somebody we're friends with. I don't need to go to Hollywood and try to find the best deal. Brian's genuine and he knows what he's talking about. So let's do that. He's in his stage of knowing what he knows about how to get things done. He's got a couple people committed to voices for the show. It hasn't gotten any further than that I know of. But hopefully, yes, it will come to light. But I always have to, when people are like, oh, you're making a TV show, I'm like, we are a long way from making a TV show. You can have a deal, a time slot and everything and still not have a TV show, which is very common.
True.
So hopefully it will get there. And I want to believe that Brian will. He has a very good track record of getting things on air. So hopefully it will get there. But I don't have a specific, thing of like, yes, this is real and this is moving. But we're at least giving it the old college try, if you will, and hoping that something does come through with it.
It's awesome. It's very exciting. I'm just going to throw out there bluegrass. Just I don't know. It's like a weird quirk I have that I just throw bluegrass.
Here's a name. Just But that's not the
Yeah.
bluegrass.
I mean, like, okay,
was-
now I'm going to talk. Like, it's like that
would
was
you
my
would you like
favorite.
his chin? Would you like his hat? Would you like his guitar? What are you after?
all of the above. All of the
A
above.
mohawk and a cowboy hat
At
and
the same time.
Like, it's like, come on. And the guitar, that's also, he was easily the coolest character.
I loved him. I loved
Yes.
Bluegrass. Yes.
It was a great toy as well. So I do have I guess a weirdish question, but between Thundercats and then Silverhawks, Tiger Sharks.
Where with the same question everybody goes. So I see what's behind door number 1.
Exactly.
Now I've seen behind door number 2. This is Showcase Showdown, right?
Yeah.
Behind door number 3.
Tiger Sharks is that thing where it's like, I remember, so I'm a little bit younger than you. I was born in 78, but I totally remember going to Toys R Us with my mom and seeing the Tiger Sharks toys on the shelves at Toys R Us. And my mom's like, okay, you can pick something out. And I'm like looking at those Tiger Sharks toys. And I'm like, those are really cool. I have no idea what they are. And I ended up not choosing Tiger Sharks. And I probably just bought another G.I. Joe or something at the time. And then I got home and that like next Saturday cartoon, Tiger Sharks there. And I was just little or young version of me, like wanting to rip his hair out and being like, yo, Tiger Sharks is awesome. So I have a fond place in my heart for Tiger Sharks.
Well, I mean, Tiger Sharks is interesting. So you go through sort of like, it's almost like the reverse stages of grief with those shows. So you have like Thundercats where everybody's like, I remember the cartoon and I had the toys. Then you get to Silverhawks and it's like, I had the toys and I kind of remember the cartoon, maybe not. And then with Tiger Sharks, you're like, they had a cartoon?
Yeah.
I just remember the toys. That's it. I just had the toys. And
they did that Power Rangers head flip kind of thing before Power Rangers.
Yep.
True.
And so it's just that thing where it's like, you know, that's the third door here.
And it's a little bit more niche for sure. Like it's
but that doesn't mean we like those weird doors. So
Mhm.
yeah.
will we get there? I'm fairly confident that we will get there in due time.
Nice. I had a question about maybe where you guys are. I know you guys have been working with the trying to figure out what you were going to do with the paint for the Silverhawks. Have you come to a conclusion to that yet, or are you still working towards it?
We're still working through that. As silly as it sounds, when you're trying to make something that's more custom like that, that's not just a color, you almost have to, it's like it runs to the factory, then it goes to the paint factory, if you will, but that actually goes then back to the paint manufacturer. And so you kind of have to go back 2 steps to like the guy that's actually making whatever solvent or, I can't even speak to it properly, but just like the core, like materials, much less the mixings of things.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really working on trying a couple different things. There's sort of this matte pearlescent I'm trying to do, where it's a matte pearlescent sort of metallic. Because in the show, obviously they're supposed to be silver, but they're never really chrome. When we think of chrome, it's because of the toy.
Correct.
It's a visceral reaction because the toys were stunning. But they're not really representational of the show.
Correct.
Much like, like here's green versus gold. Like
Right.
these things are not equal. So how do we make it have that metallic feel, but also make it feel sort of matted back like it was animation? And so trying to do that, I'm trying to also look at whether or not we can do a color shift paint like you would see on a car.
Mm-hmm.
So is it silver? Is it blue? How do you move? How do you spec those colors within the movement? Can we get there? There's something really interesting about that. But those all become special things where it's like, you literally have to work your way backwards to sampling and then coming back up, and how many gallons do I have to buy for this custom mix and how much more does it cost? There's a lot of things. So it's going to take a little while. Like right now, I mean, they're literally looking at paint samples on whatever handy reaction figures at the factory. It's like, okay, what about this guy? And it's just painted up in a color. But you know, those, if you look at them in flat art form, it's like this guy is sort of blue, light grayish blue, and these guys are sort of 40% gray blue. Like they're actually pretty dark. I know they're supposed to be a darker silver, but you know, so how do we bridge that gap between the physicality of like, no, we painted it this actual dark blue gray and then just drew some highlights on it here and there, versus, okay, this is what it should feel like in your hand as you turn it. And those are two very, very different things.
I know you're dealing with a lot of armchair quarterbacks on the internet, of course. And it's like, I like, that's, of course that's going to happen. And, you know, even myself, like when I look at them, I'm like, oh, I know what he's going for. Like, I get it. And the different levels of sheen and metallics. And it's like, you know, personally, if some of that doesn't work out, Brian, I'm just throwing out there my own opinion, and you take it, leave it. But I think some painted on, like not even going full cell shaded, but some painted on highlights might start to help achieve the effect if you can't get some of the pearlescent or metallic or gloss that you're going for.
I feel confident that we'll get a version of one of those paints. The thing that drives me crazy about the painted on cell shading, painted on comic book lines, is the moment you turn that toy 10 degrees, it's like, it's wrong. Like I've got the light coming in my room. It's like, nothing's like, the shadows are on the wrong side. And you know, it drives me crazy. Like,
so is that the inner graphic
I'll
design?
pick it up to say like, we're going to do like, once again, it is not in my best interest to not make it so that when you get it, you go, wow, that looks awesome. You know, right. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but I feel like we can get there. We've managed to get there with a lot of other processes without too much issue. So I think it's just putting in the extra effort.
Again, you're being transparent about it. And, you know, like
yeah,
that's like, so much more than
we know we can do this, but that's not what we're trying to do.
Right.
I'm trying to make this animation. I'm trying to make it so when you stand this next to your Thundercats figures and your Masters of the Universe figures and your G.I. Joe figures, they all look like they came out of the animation. Right.
You know, and that's a very important point that you bring up, where it's like, I personally, as someone that argues for, I just mentioned painting on highlights. And then I also tell you that like, I'm an articulation junkie, but at the end of the day, I own many Super 7 lines. And when you put them together, there is a cohesiveness about the stuff you do. So, and some of the things that I desire as someone who even buys this stuff, I understand that could take that away from your lines. It could take away from the cohesion. So I get what you're saying. You know, we're all allowed to have our own opinions about this.
Yeah. Stuff. Yeah. And, you know, we knew that going out animation for SilverHawks was going to make everyone go, where the hell's the vac metal? But that's also not understanding a bit of what it takes to make vac metal work.
Yeah. No vac metal. That's garbage.
Which it's not that it can't work. It's just that you have to redesign the entirety of how you would make this figure atypical from anything else they have. Everything's got to go to ABS. Everything's got to go to 2 parts. You're going to have to make different joints and different materials so that you can deal with friction fitting. Like, you know,
even then, that's like anyone that has played or grown up with toys knows that the durability of vac metal, if you mess with it at all, it's just not there. Well, I mean, it's beautiful if you're just standing it.
All of my old SilverHawks, they all flaked off. They all flaked off because I played with them all the time. The thing that really caught my eye about your guys' SilverHawks is that you were going for the cartoon look.
And that's the thing you don't have in your collection.
Exactly.
Now, maybe after we get done with this, if there is still an appetite for that silver version that feels like the thing you already have, then maybe we'll go back and make that available.
Mm-hmm.
But for what we're doing right now, I'm trying to make the cartoon because you don't have this. If you want the vac metal exists. Right. The vac metal was done brilliantly. So I don't need to give you that you don't have. I'm going to give you the version you do have. I'm going to give you the version you don't have.
Right. That was the thing that really just pulled me in on it. I was like, this is cool because we never had those versions before. And that's what made me go, okay, sign me up.
And to be fair, there's another guy that like, I had that Vac Metal toy as a kid. I loved it. I don't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the thing I want. Give me that again. And in SilverHawks, it's much more visceral than in other places.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what keeps beeping. Do you guys hear that?
Yeah, I think I don't know where that is. It's not here.
It's right out here in my hallway.
Oh, okay.
I realize we're in the middle of a podcast, though. Half of me like,
you probably just have to replace the batteries in your fire alarm or something, but it's fine.
It sounds like a printer or something. I don't know. We had a very generous super chat again from Thirsty for Chicken. Says, not sure if this can be answered since Rankin Bass did Thundercats animation. What is the likelihood of animated Hobbit and Lord of the Rings Ultimates?
I mean, in animated Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, you've got a couple different stakeholders. It almost sounds like I might have thought about this once before. Because you have the people that own the rights to the movie. Then you have the question of, do they own the rights to the artwork outside of the movie?
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of these rights were not an issue back when these movies were made. And then you have also then the Tolkien estate and everything else. So you've got to line up multiple properties, but that's not to say that it can't be done. No different than doing the movie Masters of the Universe figures that we did, where it's like, okay, now you've got to get the movie house, you've got to get the actors, you've got to get the costume designer, and you've got to get Mattel all on board.
The William Stout stuff, that was a cool get. I mean, I'm gonna admit fully, I did not buy all of them, but I bought the He-Man and the standard Skeletor because I'm not made of money or space, but I'm very, very happy that those got made at all. And the hoops that you must have jumped through in order to make it happen, kudos.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I keep coming back to, is going through the hard work that it takes to get some of this more ancillary stuff is interesting to me because I don't have it. And that's the most interesting part. Like, I don't need, I'm going to make it up. I don't know, another 3 3/4 inch Luke Farm Boy, version. Like I've got it. Mm-hmm. Like, give me another take, another twist, another version of him that gives me something that I don't have. Now I'm more interested.
Put him on a He-Man body.
that was the 95 Power of the Fourth one.
I know.
that was a setup. Like, he was like, I'll put this one up here. Let me see if he goes for it.
I mean, I would probably buy a super buff Farm Boy Luke, just for the giggle factor.
Yes, if someone did that, I would be like, oh, yeah, we're going back there? Because, okay. Yeah, sign me up for that. I wanted to bring up, I know you had mentioned in, I think, other interviews and whatnot, how you go for the feeling of toys, right? Yeah. I just wanted to say, thank you, because when I hold this, foot soldier, it feels like the old figure that I had as a kid. Like, it's insane, like how much, like, it fires off on the nostalgia factor. Like, I pick it up and I move it around, and it feels like the toy I had when I was a kid. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, that's part of the reason we spend so much time, no different on the sculpts, but onto the packaging. Mm-hmm. Like, as a kid, we all had the stacks of card backs where we were so excited, we ripped it off and made a big gash across the artwork on it, and then thought to ourselves, well, next time I'm going to make sure to cut it off, and I'm going to be careful. And by the time you got to the next toy, you just ripped it off again.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, all of those touch points were important. All of those touch points were, I don't know, there's an emotional resonance to all of this stuff. And so, yeah, we could just do this or just do that, but it's like, no. We're going to spend the time or the money to get the painting done or this or add foil or whatever we can do. So when you hold the entirety of it, it feels special. So when you got that Ultimate and you opened it up and you got that slipcase, you were like, oh, this feels like I'm handling something special.
Mhm.
This feels like everything was considered. It's not just, slapped on a blister on a card back for what that is. Like, it needs to feel like it so that every touch point along the way reinforces why you bought it, every bit of it. Even if you don't ever put, the packaging is probably in a closet someplace. But when you opened it, you were like, even the way the box is shaped so that the shipper tabs fold in so they don't touch the box, that's part of the angle, is so the flip tabs don't rub against the packaging.
Mhm.
Because you have an uneven depth that's inside the cardboard. Like, every little thing, whether it's overt or not, we've spent time with it. So
Right.
that when you get it, you may not notice those things, but I believe that the aggregate of that thinking pulls together in how you view the figure when you get it and how it presents itself to you.
Awesome. It's very, very appreciated. Like I said, I dig it. I wanted to ask you, I know, what was it last week? You said the next wave of turtles is still, some of it's sitting in a boat, some of it's there. Any updates on that?
I have 3 out of 4 figures in a warehouse. I have had the turtle has been there for 6 weeks.
Oh,
The other 2 have been there for 2 weeks. The other boat is still sitting in the harbor and has been sitting in the harbor for 6 or 7 weeks at this point. And it's just sitting there. So I can't ship them till I get the 4th. And I don't know when I'm getting the 4th, but it's sitting somewhere in the bay, somewhere within 5 or 6 miles. There is a shipping container full of turtles.
oh,
Don't tempt the people. Listen,
yeah.
You really
you're going to be attacking tankers and stuff.
Yeah, right. Like, those containers go on the back of semis. You and all your friends together couldn't even budge one. Like, you know, like,
You'll get the GI Joe specialist with his blowtorch.
Yeah.
you think shipwrecks could? Is that what the vest is for? Now I know it's for moving cargo containers. Hold on,
That's
my
what it
muscles
was.
have to have room to move.
That's exactly what it was.
We got another super chat from Thirsty for Chicken, and I want to read it because it actually is leading into another topic that I want to get into before we start running out of time.
Hold on. I had one more question.
Oh, come on, Cheney. You want to ask about music? We'll get to music too. I
No,
promise.
actually I didn't. It since we're kind of on turtles right now.
Right.
I wanted to know, it's a weird ask and like a weird thing, but like, would you guys ever like think about doing a turtle painted up like like some of those like old school Japanese vinyls that you have, like with those bizarre paint colors?
We've done some of that. It's been an interesting. If you want to talk about the toys that we've made over the years, there's been a lot of toys that have been informed by the Japanese vinyl stuff we make, where all of a sudden it gets free spray and odd colors, because that started with what we made in Japan for years and years and years, to the point which is when you've seen a couple of them out there where people say, oh, this is a prototype or test shot figure and it's all multicolors.
Mm-hmm.
That does not come from action figures. That comes from vinyls, because in vinyls, every cavity is a different mold. So when we would make stuff like that, we could make every cavity a different color. True test shots and multicolored test shots that you get from the factory is like parts will be like colors. So they're showing you all the molds. So normally, if you're dealing with action figures, you might get left arm, right leg are one color, right arm, left leg are another color, or sometimes it's all arms, legs, and heads are one color, torso is a different color, because they're showing you how the molds function. Mm-hmm. So when you would get a test shot of vinyl, it's all multicolors.
Right.
because every part's a different tool. So you need to understand when planning your painting or planning your injection dye colors, these are where all the molds correspond to. So in vinyl, every color is different. In action figures, you have related colors in related spaces. So when we would do some of this stuff with toys, we would go and make wacky multicolors that were all different colors because we would see that from the vinyl side and be like, oh, this is so cool. Let's do wacky, all different part colors. Because it usually means you have to shoot a whole bunch of, like, say the arms and the left arm and right leg were in the same mold. I've got to shoot half of them in one color, change out the plastic and shoot it again in a different color to get that effect. So when you see that, that's actually a Japanese vinyl reference, not a US toy or action figure production sample. That's the first part. The glitter stuff that we do from time to time, if you've seen any of our glitter figures, where they're just packed with glitter, that was a trick we learned in vinyl and how you keep it from sticking to the inside of a tool, because the last thing you want to do is have glitter encasing your molds. So that was a trick we pulled from Japanese vinyl. And then a lot of the ideas of, sometimes it's free spray, but of just the multicolor options that don't make a whole lot of sense. That comes directly from us in the vinyl world, because that's something that we helped evolve. We weren't the only people doing it, but we were one of the firsts really going in there and getting stuff that was off model. And in that sort of collecting world, because if you look back at vintage Japanese vinyl, especially the monsters, most specifically the monsters, it does happen from time to time at the heroes, but the monsters, vinyl figures were the junk. They were the cheap toy of Japan. So as a kid, you might have had 15, 20 vinyls, and then you had 2 or 3 die casts. And the die casts were your like fancy, nice toys. That was your special toy. With the vinyls, because it was junk, there was no overseeing or QC. They literally just didn't care. If they ran out of a paint, they just subbed in whatever else they had that day. If the vinyl color they ran out of, well, we'll just use this vinyl color for a little while till it comes back in. And so historically, you can look unintentionally, which is what people like me would always do and go to Japan, is here's, Godzilla or Kanagon or Baltan Sajin or whatever. And here's all these variations. Here's one with light blue spray. Here's one with blue metallic spray. Here's one with green spray. Here's one with red spray. Here's one in light blue vinyl. Here's one in dark green vinyl. Here's one in black vinyl. Like whatever. It's whatever they had that day, literally at times. And so there's sort of this acceptance of like, you can collect a character and have multiple versions of them in colors that don't have a lot of sense to the actual colors themselves, but as a toy, it's really beautiful. So when we started doing Alien, that was one of the things that we started getting into, was like, do you think that this customer would be interested, this action figure guy? I said, I think that there's an action figure guy out there that would be interested in buying this Alien figure the way we sell Godzilla, which is like, hey, it's an alien, but this time it's in clear orange glitter. And this time it's in translucent purple. And this time it's in green blood splatter. And this time it's in this, because it's just another way to be excited about this character. There's also a person there that I want a black alien with the spots on the dome, and I want it to look like the Kenner, or I want it to look like the movie suit. And all this other stuff you're doing seems weird to me, and I don't like it. And I feel like you're trying to fleece me for more money, none of which is true. I'm making that toy for that guy over there that was like, yeah, okay, I just bought purple glitter. When am I getting blue glitter? When am I getting, neon pink? When am I getting this? Because I love Alien, and seeing all these aliens lined up is so interesting to me. So when you get into things like when we started with the worst, which was once again us going like, villains are always the coolest characters in any design wise in most every franchise. We're like, why don't we just make a line of villains? We don't even, let's just cut the heroes out altogether. Let's just make a line of villains. And in as much, we knew that we couldn't reach the manufacturing threshold that we needed to reach because nobody knows who Super 7 is, much less the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, we went in and said, okay, we're going to make 6 colorways of each figure. It might take us 2 years to release them all, but that's the way we can get to the volume that we need to make. But, we'll make this one, and then there's a midnight version, and then there's a glow-in-the-dark version. And for that guy that likes this, he's going to be into it. But there's going to be a lot of other people that aren't. And so there's a whole lot of that sort of stuff that we did when we were making toys in Japan. We still make toys in Japan, but from our Japanese vinyl days that we have translated into action figures because I've collected all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So if I like this, I will probably like this. And there may be another person that likes that as well.
True.
And so you definitely see where certain lines people are really into that, and certain lines people are not. True. And Toxic Avenger is a perfect example. Like, we're behind, but like we need to make a couple more weird Toxies because every time we make them, people are like, "Where's the next Toxie?
Yeah.
Come on!"
Yeah, that's perfect for that.
You're not giving me another Toxie, And so maybe I'm skirting it where free spray is a little trickier. We do some of it from time to time. There'll be figures where we're doing more of the free spray kind of things that was specific to your question. But the lessons, if you will, from making Japanese vinyl, we've applied to action figures in a lot of places.
Okay.
And, that's maybe the slightly larger answer to.
Okay.
I'm building a turducken answer out of your question.
No, thank you. I
Toy
appreciate
turducken.
it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yoko said needs more glitter. And then we had a very generous super chat from Andy Davis. This says, best meal that Brian has provided for his employees.
Best meal? Usually, if it's anybody's first day, whenever we come back to the office, we get donuts. So it's hard to argue that donuts isn't the best meal ever. But on people's birthday, they get to pick what they're going to have for lunch. That said, I have a bias. And my bias is I want Mission Chinese. Which is, if they have one in New York now, but the one here is the original. And it is not just Chinese food. It is melt your face tot level Chinese food.
Really?
And they're very famous, but like they make these things that should not exist that are amazing. So first off is they have Kung Pao pastrami.
What?
Which is bonkers. And then they have this other thing called thrice cooked rice with bacon, which are basically, if you didn't know any better, you think they were water chestnuts. They look like sliced water chestnuts. Instead, it's rice that's been cooked 3 times, I assume, by thrice cooked rice and formed into these discs with bacon with this sauce that is so death. Like I said, you turn into tot. Like it's just, but it's so flavorful at the same time that you can't stop eating it. So when I go to best meal, it's like if I've got my druthers at all, we bring in Mission Chinese for lunch, and it's, and then everybody just goes into a coma.
I'm so happy right now because Brian, we do a thing here where I call it Snack Migos, and I try to talk about food instead of toys. I'm just so glad that we got into a segment of Snack Migos tonight.
There we go.
Yes. I do. We have another super chat from Thirsty for Chicken, which he says, okay, last one, large scale ultimate Chernobog. So wish list, yes, but I want to talk about Disney
Chernobog a lot. So
yeah, I want to talk about Disney Ultimates though, because that is like literally one of the big cool lines that you have going on. Now I'd like you to just talk about it in whole. I'm super excited about Robin Hood personally, because that is like a dream figure for me. I obviously got Prince John, but Robin Hood himself is just like, that was like one of the coolest cartoons for me. And I'm so excited about that figure. I have a laundry list of wish lists for that line, but I want to know, is it just going to be Disney animated feature films? Like, what kind of stuff? Like, what can you talk about? And like, I'm excited for this line. So tell me more.
Tell me more. We're going to go all over the place with it. It's very interesting. We also, one thing, it's same thing, listening, it's not so much when people complain, but just the feedback. Obviously, when we launched like Turtles, for an example, and there was only one turtle in the first wave, immediately everybody was like, oh, I know I'm in for 4 waves. This is going to be great.
Right.
We're going to get 16 figures. I'm ready. And we're like, yeah, like we don't need to do all the turtles. Like, let's work our way through it. Right. So we use that same exact thinking with Disney. And granted, that customer is new to us in a lot of ways. And it had the exact opposite reaction, which is the customer was just kind of going like, what? Like, why would I buy Prince John if you don't have Robin Hood? Like, why would I buy this if you don't have that? And I'm like, no, you should know if I'm making Prince John, Robin Hood's coming, right? No, we don't know that.
Yeah.
So after wave 3, we're changing the way we've assorted the waves a little bit. But, that was one of the things when we really started talking to Disney, it was the same thing. It was like, there's so much stuff that I want that's never really been made. Like the easy go-to that everybody is like, if we want to make money, go make Mickey and Daisy and Donald and Goofy. That's where you go. And I was like, what I want, quite literally, the first priority was Prince John. Going back to living on base in Bitburg, Germany, on Friday nights, you could take your kids to the daycare and go out to dinner. And it was like, you drop them off at the daycare, you'd play games for a little while, then they'd play some Super 8mm films while you laid on your cot, and then you went to sleep till your parents came and picked you up. One of those Super 8s that played over and over again was the soccer match from Robin Hood. Granted, I would see bits and pieces of the whole movie, but the soccer match was the one over and over and over again. So when it was like, okay, hey, we're going to work on Disney and we're going to start making Ultimates, I was like, Prince John. I don't care what else we do in wave 1, but we are doing Prince John, and we're going to then make Robin Hood as the stork.
Yes.
It is Robin Hood too.
That blew me away when you guys did that. Honestly, like I was like, holy cow. That's one of my favorite Disney movies, like period. Hands down, it's Robin Hood, it's Jungle Book, and Peter Pan. Those are like my 3 favorites. Like, but yeah, all the Robin Hood stuff is, I love it.
And that was the thing. It was like, once again, it's like, I don't know how well this is going to work or if it's going to work at all. I think there's somebody out there that wants this, and I don't know where it's going to go. So I'm making sure that wave 1 is what I want. Mm-hmm. And then in theory, I'm thinking that people understand this disjointed plan that we have. And then, here's Prince John. So next should be Robin. But, it's the same thing. Like, then it was like within me, within Josh, Nomi, Mari, Kyle, everybody within the design team, we're like, who are the characters that we resonate with? Who do we want? And that's how we kind of ended up with the figure selection that we have. That's why, even when you get into wave 2, it's Alice and the Mad Hatter. It's not Alice and some of the other characters. It's like, we're going to go here first.
Right.
We're going to make the Hyacinth Hippo. We're going to be making what I think maybe to some people are disjointed and unexpected choices, but we're not trying to necessarily make it for them. We're making it for us. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we're also trying to be, we're listening to the feedback and being cognizant about what we're hearing, which is, hey, if the wave had Prince John and Robin Hood, the stork, and you would have had the sheriff, like Sheriff of Nottingham, like I would have bought those, but because there was only one, I didn't understand. Yeah. And so we'll shift that around because, like I said, people are, I listen to what people are saying. And do I have to take what they're saying and understand if I think it's valid or not valid and appropriate? And if And so in this case like this, we'll move things around a little bit. But
this is one of those lines like that. It's going to happen like what is happening with Ninja Turtles with you guys, where it's like, I think you're going to have to potentially go back to the well, because once people start seeing them and getting them, it's Disney. Like, this is huge.
Yeah.
It is. And I'd like to think that that's a possibility. We'll see. We'll see what people say. We have seen time and time again when we start a new line that once those figures actually landed in hand, that there's an increase in demand. I look at the line and I go, nobody's ever made this. Like, the fact is, that also boggles my mind, is no one's ever made a Prince John toy.
Right.
Ever. Like, how is that possible? Like I don't understand it.
I mean, I pre-ordered Prince John immediately because I knew Robin Hood would be coming. But like, Robin Hood does that for me. The same thing. Yeah, he's obvious. He's the A-list. He's the hero character. But it's like, man, I've wanted that figure since I was a wee little playing with myself.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to let that roll.
We just roll with it.
I'm going to roll with that one. But yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, we're on wave 2 of Disney pre-orders. Then we'll get to wave 3. We'll start delivering. I believe that line can go on forever, quite honestly.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I try to be very cognizant about how much, because they're expensive, how often I'm going to somebody and asking them to buy the toys to collect my line. I don't know, once these things land, if all of a sudden we will realize that the demand is so much for something so much faster because nothing like that exists to that community. I really don't know. I think we're going to organically see how it happens, but I know we'll talk about it like, Jesus, like, we can rattle off 60 characters real quick.
That's the thing. It's like, when I was like jotting down notes for topics and questions, and like I got to Disney, I have like a wish list, and it's like, it's silly. We have lots of other stuff to talk about, but I am going to force a little bit of sing song into this episode again, and just say, life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. So that's it. Go ahead. Now we can just talk about anything else you want.
No comment.
I got it out of my system.
There you go. We'll just sort of see. I mean, it's no different than because I have it here because I was just talking to somebody about it. But it's like these things, like nothing like this has ever existed, which boggles my mind. Like, how is this possible? Like, this thing is so crazy and it's huge. All the soft goods on it. It's like, I don't know. Like, is that customer going to want it or not? When we made the Peanuts ones, obviously you can look back historically and say, okay, here were the Dakin toys for the 60s that had some soft goods on them, but they were much more crude. Like these look so great. And the reality is with those, like, most people have never even seen those. We've already released 4 different Snoopy supersize vinyls, Peanut series supersize. And for the most part, no one knows they even exist.
Yeah,
like they just disappeared. They were gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
And, so now as we get into Disney, it's like same thing. Like, what do we not have? I don't need to go make what everybody else is making. That's already been done. Let me go make something that you don't have, something that I want to have, something that feels exciting and new and different. Like the next 2 figures after this Mickey for Disney are by far some of the best toys we've ever made, hands down, period.
Oh, wow.
Not saying that this one isn't, but I'm just saying the next one and the one after that it's just like same thing. We're just like, oh my God. But it's also like, how do we make sure that people see it? How do we make sure that people understand what they're looking at even when you have it? And I don't know the answer to that. And that's just going to take time.
True. Yeah.
We got another super chat, one from Wrestling Hound, which I know the answer to. He's saying, is Marvel and Star Wars possible for the Disney line? Those are separate licenses, even though it's under Disney. But it opens a question that I do have in my list here, which is what are some other licenses that you'd love to have Super 7 take a crack at in general? Like,
I think so. So speaking directly to him, the reason that Marvel and Star Wars, yes, they are technically owned by Disney. They are technically completely different divisions, but both of them also have master toy agreements from Hasbro, which are pretty ironclad.
Yeah.
Obviously, as anybody growing up my age, or quite frankly, shit these days. Oops, sorry. Anybody's age is, Star Wars is the holy grail of all licenses for a lot of people because it is hard to get. Yep. Although it seems like it's not, but based on how much stuff is out there. But within the toy space, aside from 12-inch deluxe figures, it's very difficult. There's a lot of cool stuff that could be done with Marvel. We had some stuff that we worked on for Mattel for DC that was unlike anything that was out there that got shelved. So maybe one day that'll all come back around. Who knows? I think the other thing is that if I were explicitly to tell you my other dream licenses, somebody else would go get them before I could.
Exactly. You're showing your cards too much.
Yeah. So, I'm going to keep that one a little close to my vest and keep my Valentine's right here.
There you go.
And if you get one, you'll know.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Yeah, never show your cards.
It's not about never showing your cards. It's just that those particular cards I'm not going to show you. I'll show you other cards, but not those.
Dan Yun from the Hasbro team says, "Don't touch Marvel, man. We respect and collect your stuff, Brian. Only respect."
Don't touch Marvel. Come on, let's work together, Dan. This is Voltron. We need to come together.
There you go.
I'm just glad that Dan Yoon is back here. He's been banned before from our chat by overzealous moderators.
Yes.
Welcome back, Dan.
Yes, welcome back, sir.
Well, Dan, I hope that one of these days we will get to collaborate on something stunning and beautiful that will make us all happy.
I agree with that.
They're doing a great job on the retro line as well, by the way. I think that I really like that line. Go figure, but I really like that line.
Well, I never would have thought.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I go same thing. I went straight to Hasbro Pulse and ordered that first wave, just like everybody else. And then I picked up bits and pieces of the other ones as I've been able to find them. I know I probably should be a little bit better about just pre-ordering the whole wave ahead of time, but it's the same thing. You still want to be able to walk in and pick it up,
So how, I'm sure you have to have seen some of the stuff for the Galactus. What are your thoughts on that, real quick?
I think it's impressive. I like the fact that stuff like this is being made. I like the fact that Hasbro's giving an opportunity for those things to exist. I don't collect, to me, it almost becomes this long-winded eventual sort of extension of what Toy Biz that then became Marvel Legends. That's this. And it's really cool. I don't feel the need to own it because it is such a large scale action figure, for lack of a better description. Whereas if all of a sudden it was a Shogun Warrior, a Jumbo Machender, I'd be like, oh, I have to buy it. And then there'd be a whole host of other people that would be like, it looks stupid. It doesn't look, it's wrong proportions. And why is it shooting missiles? And I'd be like, tomato here. Here we go.
You don't get it. Yeah, you don't get it, man. You don't get why this is
but
amazing.
As far as what it's no different. It's kind of a funny thing. Like I didn't order Jabba's sail barge, but I immediately bought the Razor Crest. So, and it really just
you all draw the line in the sand somewhere.
Well, with Jabba's sail barge, I was just, as a kid, I was just, I just never thought that Jabba the Hutt was that cool. And I didn't really need his boat.
Yeah.
I just wasn't that interested. But, a lot of other people were. So I love the fact that they're making big, beautiful toys for their collectors, and they're giving their design team a chance to do those projects that don't make sense for the shelves of Target and Walmart. And I think that's incredibly important, because I can guarantee you somewhere within the Unicron and the Skiff and the Razor Crest and this Galactus, that there is something that they learned making those toys that is finding its way into the DNA of a toy that is going on shelf at Target. And if you're not completely always looking for something new and trying to innovate and make it interesting, you're going to get caught making the same things over and over again. So I love the fact that they are making dramatic toys and toys that are for a limited audience, because those toys are great toys that deserve to exist, not because those toys are the most efficient and profitable.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I would probably argue that the Razor Crest is probably the most fiscally, that's the wrong way of putting it, but they probably made more money on the Razor Crest than any spaceship they ever sold to Target or Walmart.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. HasLab is a very, very good idea for Hasbro in general.
They're picking good projects and they're doing good things. Like, I'm very surprised that the big Cookie Monster didn't get funded, because who doesn't want a life-size Cookie Monster at their house? I think it's probably more because of the fact of, how do you display something that has no feet?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but beyond that, it's like, okay, yeah, that didn't work. That doesn't mean you don't keep trying. And
Right.
so the fact that they've only had one project that didn't fund means that they're basically batting 1,000. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I got 4 Sentinels myself, so
Yes, there you go.
I can't wait till they get here.
Because Wolverine has to fight at least 3 at any given time. They always show up in 3s.
You know what, Brian? I'm loving you more and more. Just, more and more here.
Now you just
while we're talking about that, I want to talk about the ThunderTank really fast, because one of my desires with the ThunderTank is I am limited in space. And like, I brought this up a couple times, where the ThunderTank in the cartoon, frequently the grappling claws used it to climb walls. And I was like, I want the ThunderTank to be wall mountable. And it's like, all right, if you guys aren't going to make it wall mountable, I'm going to figure out how to make that thing wall mountable on my own. Just saying. It used to climb walls.
I'm going through like, I feel like right now it's like that thing when they flash into Steve Austin and like, I'm just like, I'm looking, because it's literally like 2 feet from me. And I'm just going, how would you do that? How would you do that? How would you do that?
I mean, you'd have to put a couple of those, keyhole style holes in the bottom. And I know that would break up sculpt stuff, but it's on the bottom too. Just saying.
Yeah.
I can figure it out on my own if I have to, Brian. It's fine. I'm not going to put you on the spot like that.
No. It's just, it's
now
like,
he's thinking. That's what it is. You got him going. Oh,
now I'm going to spend like the next 2 days just going like,
good. Thank God.
Where's the weight ratio? Would the hands fall back? Like, how would you keep this?
Now the Toymigos Discord they know that I'm obsessed with making stuff wall mountable for some reason, because of lack of display space. So, thank you for even
put a small engine on it, and you drive it around like a clown on those little tiny trains.
Yes,
fair enough. One of the questions, because we're running low on time, but you mentioned Prince John being like something that like you're very excited for. I wanted to know, like, what are some of the toys that you've done, that you've worked on, that are like some of your and I know this is like picking children, I get it, but like, what are some of your favorites worked on?
The hard part, the funniest part about it is, I'm the most excited about any of the projects we work with when I get the test shots.
So it's stuff like Godzilla Ultimates, perhaps?
But like, I am just moving right on. Uh, it's I get most excited about the toys at that point, and then you get the painted version, and you're like, because when the first time it's real and physical, it's like, oh my god, this is insane. It's still exciting to see it in the package. It's still exciting to see it painted, but it sounds so cornball. I'm so excited about the next one. That said, I can go back historically and go like, what are the big ones or the ones that have maybe more resonance than others? You know, the Alien set that we did, the very first Alien figure and Kane figure that we did, Kane spacesuit to be very clear, like those figures are still some of that's if the chips are down in the end, that will always probably be my favorite reaction figure, because we had no idea any of this would happen. I just wanted so badly those Alien prototypes that were on the cover of Tomart. I wanted those for real. And the fact that we made them we had to figure this whole thing out back then. So it took a long time to do. And that was one of those things that when we made those figures, and we went to San Diego Comic-Con in 2014 or 15, 14. Somebody's going to correct me. Yeah. There you go. We were going to San Diego with figures that were low likeness, low articulation, low paint app, high price, $20 per figure. And the market at that point was right after the multi-articulated Stormtrooper had come out.
Oh, okay.
From Hasbro. And so the market was $7.99, $8.99, lots of articulation, heavy paint apps, very much on model. And we honestly did not believe that we were going to San Diego with something that we figured there'd be a small group of really diehard toy collectors that knew what we were talking about. And that was it. We had no idea the response we were going to get, and that we were tapping into a level of nostalgia that we wanted, that so many other people were also looking for. And so not only do I love the fact that we made that because I wanted that, but what it offered up to me as a guy that, yes, I had made toys. I've been making vinyls for years, but you're talking about runs of 200 at a time for a very small audience. And it's great. I loved it. But it gave me the opportunity to start the journey that gets us to making all of this, all the other ideas that I have, every other thing I sat around and said, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if? So that figure will always have that for me. The Worst is another one of those lines that for me is because that was very much our idea and our goofball thing. And is it going to work? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, but let's just put it out there. And the fact that it's still going and still evolving, Wave 3's just about to come out, Wave 4's in sculpting right now. Like the fact that we're going to be at like 24, 25 Worst figures in another year is kind of unbelievable to me. Like that's amazing. I love sort of similarly when we got to do the 3 Terrors and Possessed Skeletor, and those toys, along with the fact that we got to make our own animation, that 10-minute animated show, like we got to create our own characters for Masters of the Universe, and then actually make them as 5.5-inch Masters of the Universe figures and sell them when we debuted the cartoon. Like how
that's amazing.
How fucking crazy is that? I'm sorry, I messed up again. I'm trying. But like that was crazy. And the fact is now what's crazier to me is I only learned this in the past month that the black Possessed Skeletor is like $1,000 on the secondary market, which is crazy to me. But like we got to make our own characters, and people bought them and felt like they fit within the vernacular of that show. They weren't foreign. They weren't, that's weird. They were like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got to write lines of dialogue that were spoken by Skeletor.
Yeah.
You know, there's that. And then there's lots of little things. I mean, this, I realize this just came out, but this one is one of my favorite things we've ever made. And I was so pumped to do this. And it was like, yeah, it's all we did was scale down the Shogun Godzilla and whatever, but like, this makes me feel 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I can hold, you know, and it's not like, you know, as much as I love the 2-foot one, I can't hold it in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with the tongue and with everything, I'm just like, these are the things that are fun and exciting. So when you ask me about my babies, it's not so much, you know, it's the process of making the toy is the most exciting part of it. And I'm excited. I try to be excited about everything we make. If I'm not excited about them, why are we making it?
Right. There's no, if you're not excited, if it's too much of a chore, then you're not putting your love into it.
If it's just a checklist, then let's not make it. Let's not make it.
Agreed. All right. Well, I think we're about out of time. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out and spending the time to talk with us tonight. I really appreciate it.
I'm sorry I messed up on the cursing twice.
It's okay. It's all right.
Now you've got some post-work to do later tonight. Good for before. Now you got to wait for it. Like, where is it? Oh man.
Well, at least I know it's towards the end, so I'm good there. I'm like, all right, cool. So I got it. It's no big deal. But you know, like I said, thank you so much. You know, anytime you want to come back, you got an open invite. If there's something new, you know, I still have
like a bunch of other topics written down over here too.
Exactly. No, I'm like, you know, it might be painfully obvious. I'm happy to talk about toys all the time. So,
we're guilty of that too. So,
well, 438 episodes, I would say yes, you are actually professionally guilty.
Yes.
With that.
Oh yes, for sure.
So, yeah, we'll definitely do it again whenever, you know.
Awesome.
Let me know.
Awesome. Where could everyone keep up with you, Brian?
If you want to keep up with me, the only place I actually exist is on Instagram, and it's literally just Brian Flynn. If you see it on any other social media, it's just being mirrored or reposted. So people will be like, I messaged you on Facebook. It's like, I'm not there. It's not me. It's a robot. It's not me.
I'm right there with you. Instagram is the best social media. Like, it's all those other ones.
I have time for one. I have time for one, and that is it. And then you can follow Super 7, just Super and the number 7, on any of your social media accounts, and they're out there actively active. Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to the chat Migos, and thank you for all the generous super chats. We got one last one from Jesse Lewis. Thanks for the awesome show. Thank you, sir. As always, I am Cheney 180.
I'm playing with myself.
I'm Brian Flynn, I guess.
All right, perfect.
You don't want to use your superhero name, Brian?
I don't have a superhero name. I don't have time for aliases. It's like, it's just me. Like, just come find me. You know where I'm at.
All right. And remember, guys,